Hello students, welcome to IAS Academy. In this particular video, we are going to discuss about a recent statement that has come from the 47th President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, where he has talked about finishing the job, referring to Israel's job or Israel's attack over the Gaza territory, especially targeting Hamas. So he has stated that it is time to get rid of them as ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas that was also brokered by United States seems to be failing as such. So let us try to understand what exactly he has stated. Now, before going on a 4-day private visit to Scotland, President Trump has stated and he has called upon Israel to escalate the military conflict in the Gazan territory against the Hamas terrorists as such, and also to finish the job against Hamas as such. Now, this is the first time we are seeing such kind of statement coming from the President Trump, and this clearly highlights that he might have lost all the hope of brokering a kind of ceasefire or brokering a kind of peace deal between Israel and Hamas. Now, it also has come after very significant development as far as the Israel-Hamas negotiations is concerned, because he has withdrawn his Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff. Steve Witkoff is the point person for Donald Trump whenever it is coming to a point of talking about ceasefire or negotiation. He was also involved between Russia and Ukraine ceasefire, and he also was his point person in this particular context. Now, he has been withdrawn, and also all other negotiators have been withdrawn from US side. The negotiation was going on in the capital city of Qatar, Doha, in the Middle Eastern region. Also, he has given a controversial statement where he has said, I think they want to die, referring to the Hamas, and it's very, very bad. But he also has talked about that it is time, maybe it is time to finish the job that Israel has started. Now, before understanding the repercussions and what might be the future for this particular area of Middle East, let us try to understand this entire region on the map. Now, if you look at this particular region, this is your Mediterranean Sea, and along the coast of Mediterranean Sea lies a state of Israel. As you can see, the Israel is this particular region shaded in the yellow areas. And overall, if you talk about the Palestinian territory, it has two territory. One is on the eastern side, that is referred as West Bank, having a border with the Jordan. This area is relatively peaceful, and Israel has not carried out any strikes or attack against this particular region. This is the region that also is not under the clutches of Hamas, we can say. On the other hand, you can see a narrow strip of land along the western coast of Israel, western coast of this particular region, and it is opening toward the Mediterranean Sea. This is the region that is called as Gaza. This is the region where Hamas enjoys a strong foothold, and this is the region where Israel has targeted its military intervention, military strike against. Now, if you look closely, Gaza shares a very small border with another country here, that is Egypt. So, any kind of humanitarian assistance, whenever it has been provided to the people of Gaza, there is no other option but to come from the Egyptian side as far as the land side is concerned. Also, Israel for time to time has opened its corridor to ensure that humanitarian supply-laden trucks are allowed to enter the Gaza Strip region as such. So, if you try to understand, you have several countries here. If you talk about the northern side, Israel shares a border with Syria, and further in the north, it has bordered the country called as Lebanon. So, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt, these are the major Arabian countries surrounding Israel. Within them, you have Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Now, if we try to understand the background, we know that the Israel-Palestinian dispute is a very, very long dispute, and in the modern context, it began somewhere after the year 1945 or post-World War II, we can say. Since then, both of the states, whether it is the state of Israel or the state of Palestine, has been claiming that the entire region belongs to them, and that is where the dispute rises. Now, as far as the background of this particular crisis is concerned, we can trace it back to the day of October 7th, 2023, which many experts argue to be one of the darkest day in the history of Israel. It was on this particular day, several terrorists from this Hamas group entered through the Gaza Strip region, and they killed many people from Israel and also abducted few. Now, since then, there has been continuous negotiation about the release of hostages captured by Hamas, and still few hostages are under the captivity of Hamas as such. Now, as a retaliatory measures against this particular October 7, 2023 attack, Israel has continuously carried out bombardment, aerial strike, rocket launches, and all kind of military intervention you can think of, and that has devastated the entire Gaza region as such. It also has led to the destruction and what you can call as overall degradation of the capabilities of the Hezbollah, or the major allies and supporter of Hamas, which again indirectly is provided help and support by Iran as such. So this is how we have to understand this entire situation. Now, before moving further to understand this in more detail, that whether US itself want to drag the war, I would want to bring your attention to the fact that Legacy IAS Academy, we are going to soon launch our new batches. Batches are going to commence on 9th and 11th of August. That is going to be the weekend and weekday batches. Now, if you look at the main features of our batches, we believe that we need to, aspirants need to have a comprehensive understanding of all the GS paper, and that is why we focus in covering our classes. Apart from that, we also have a dedicated one-to-one mentorship and doubt solving sessions, and we also believe in having regular interaction with educator, and to ensure that this interaction is not only outside the class but within the class itself. And that is why we have a strict policy of maximum 40 students per batch, so that the student teacher ratio can be maintained in a best way and interaction can also be ensured as such. We also believe that the preparation of UPSC should be done in an integrated manner right from the start, where you have to prepare for prelims, mains and interview, and that is where daily mains answer writing practice that will have here can play a significant role. We also have test regions for both prelims and mains examination, so that time to time students can evaluate their performance, and based on the feedback then they can further change the course of the preparation, direction of the preparation, and focus on their strength and weaknesses. We also have 360 coverage of current affairs, many more features. Now, if you want to know more detail about these programs and the courses, everything you can get to know by giving a call at the number being displayed here, and also you can click the link in the description box of this particular video. Now, coming back to the particular topic, if you look that what is the most recent development, so as discussed, US has withdrawn from the ceasefire negotiations that was going on in Qatar. At the same time, Trump has stated that it is Hamas to blame. It is the lack of good faith being shown from the Hamas side that has led to the negative conclusion, or what you can call as the undesirable conclusion in the end of negotiation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, on the other hand, is more optimistic, and he still is looking a way forward, is thinking about a way forward, that how a ceasefire can be ensured between Israel and Hamas. And here the main interest of Israel lies in the fact that several Israeli hostages are still, as we discussed, under the captivity of Hamas, and the main concern of Israel to ensure that these hostages can be freed and released without any problems as such. Also, because the continuous military escalations and strikes carried out by Israel against the Gazan territory, we have seen a kind of humanitarian crisis unfolding in Gaza. This has been reported by local groups as well as by the United Nations organization as well, especially in the context of famine, starvation and large-scale displacement that we see is going on here. Now, if you look at the statement coming from the UN agency called as World Food Program, the agency has clearly stated that in Gaza, as of now, over more than 90,000 women and children are facing crisis of malnutrition. Malnutrition means they do not have enough food to survive, they do not have enough food to ensure that they can live a good life, and that is why they are in urgent need of treatment and such, and that is where the demand for opening a humanitarian corridor comes into picture. We also are seeing the divergence of view between the France, UK on the one hand and United States on the other hand, where we are seeing that France and UK have released a joint statement where they have stated that Israel should immediately lift restrictions on the flow of aid. On the other hand, Israeli military says that many times under the garb of transferring aid or supplying aid, there is a supply of weapons that is being seen both from the Egyptian side as well as Israeli territory side, and that is why they are doing checks of all the trucks passing through the Gazan territory. That takes a lot of time, and that also overall negatively impact the distribution of food and other aids as such. At the same time, both France and UK have stated that withholding of essential humanitarian assistance to the civilian population is unacceptable. On the other hand, you talk about the stance of US, it has not given a clear stance in this particular matter as well. Now, the question that might come into mind, does US want to escalate the war, or whatever is its view? So we have to first of all understand from the military and strategic indicator that we are seeing coming from the theater of war. First of all is that US has continued to supply arms to Israel. There has not been any changes as such. We have not seen any pressure being built up on the Israeli side by Americans that you should withdraw from the theater of war or you should try to minimize the number of casualties. Rather, if you look at, there has been continued arms transfer to Israel, and this has clearly been reflected in the last month itself when Israel and Iran went on a war as such. In that context, if you remember, US has supplied Iran with the B-2 bombers, which has bombed the Iranian nuclear sites as well. Second, we have seen that there has been no pushback on ground invasion, which is clear-cut different from the France, UK and even Canadian stance, where they are talking to bring a war to a conclusion, to an end, so that civilian lives are not lost. Civilian casualties, as far as the civilian casualties are concerned, US has been less vocal as compared to the other Western countries and Western counterpart. And this overall view of US, if you try to understand, clearly aligns with the Israel's policy goal, where Israel has clearly stated, Benjamin Netanyahu has many times in his statement has stated that one of the end goal of the war that Israel has waged against Gaza is to bring to an end to any kind of military capabilities that Hamas has, so that in the future Hamas cannot present any significant threat to the Israel and Israeli citizen as such. Also, we try to understand from the geopolitical objective how the dragging of war can serve and fit into the geopolitical objective of US. So first of all, obviously, as we have discussed, that Iran has developed an axis of resistance. For example, this is the Iran, and here we have Israel, as you have stated. Now, the Iran's axis of resistance include countries such as Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen in the south. Now, interestingly, we know that in Lebanon, Bashar al-Assad, who was a stalwart ally or a staunch supporter of Iran, his rule came to an end. Thus, Iran lost an important supporter in the Syria region. Then after that, Lebanon also, because Syria was the land corridor through which Iran was able to supply weapons to Hezbollah in Lebanon, and these weapons were then further transferred to Hamas in the Gaza Strip. So fall of Syria has led to a catastrophic end to any kind of alliance between Iran, Lebanon and Hamas as such. So Hezbollah has become weakened, and that has resulted in the weakening of Hamas also. So overall, what we can say that if the longer the war drags, weaker will be the capabilities of Hamas, Hezbollah and all, and weaker will be the capabilities of Iran as such. So overall, the dragging of war will help US in containing Iran-Hezbollah axis. So this is also the reason why US want the war to drag and military what you can call as military escalation to further go on. Second, we know that even in the domestic politics of US, Israeli lobby, more precisely Jewish lobby, is very, very strong. This we can see from the organization called as AIPAC. AIPAC has a very strong voice, and it can play a very significant role in ensuring the elections, or this what you can call as affecting the results of elections, by elections that will take place in US as well. This is something that also Donald Trump is eyeing at. Third, we have to understand that these lobby also influences election narrative, and by Donald Trump ensuring that he is providing all kind of support to Israel, they can present his narrative and image of being a very tough president as far as the terrorist or terrorism is concerned, because he and the US itself has declared Hamas as a terrorist organization as such. And fourth, most importantly, if you look at it from the economic perspective also, the longer the war drags on, more will the demand of American weapons, and arms industry will also profit. So that might be another motivation of the Donald Trump and US president and US administration as such. Apart from that, if you look at, there has been a clear-cut contradicting and mixed messages coming from US president, where US on the one hand has favored that there should be humanitarian corridor, there should not be any kind of interference in the supply of aids and the food to the civilians in the Gaza region. At the same time, US has provided and lent verbal support for the two-state solution. Two-state solution is a UN-led resolution which states that in the same geographical area there should be coexistence of both states, that is state of Palestine, state of Israel. On the other hand, Hamas completely denies this kind of statement, denies this kind of arrangement. It states that right from the river to the sea, that means from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, it is the Arabian territory. It should be the Palestinian territory. Israel, on the other hand, is also trying to shrink the area that is under the Palestinian stronghold or Palestinian influence, and it is trying to continuously expand its settlement as well. Now, third, also there has been delay in enforcing ceasefire deadlines that we see coming from not only Hamas side but also from the American side, and America till now has followed a policy of carrot and stick that is also called as dual track diplomacy. Now, overall, if you look at the international perception of the American viewpoint here, Israeli viewpoint here, we can understand that as far as the global south is concerned, leadership of which US, China, both India and China both claims, it seems to clearly think that it is the United States of America or the failure of US that is enabling escalation in the Middle Eastern region. US also does not seem to be very serious in bringing the war to an conclusion or end. It wants it to drag on. The reason behind already we have discussed what is the interest of America here. Second, we are seeing that very significant divergence in the European Union viewpoint and US-Israel viewpoint. European Union, on the other hand, has called for restraint from the Israeli side as well. And also, we can see that recently, President of France, Emmanuel Macron, has stated that France will now recognize Palestine as a state, and this is very, very significant development as such. Apart from that, Arab nations also have clearly made a public outcry, especially when few months back Donald Trump has stated that he wants to convert Gaza into the Riviera of the Mediterranean, and the people who are basically we can say who are displaced because of the war against Gaza, they should be accommodated in the neighboring Arab nations such as Jordan, Lebanon and all. So that has also created a kind of public outcry. Arabian nations has clearly stated that this is not possible. The people of Gaza should remain in their homeland, that is Gaza Strip. And overall what we are seeing that there is a rising anti-American sentiment globally as far as this particular war is concerned. Now, what is the interest of India in this entire situation? Though we are very, very far away geographically, but we have a significant interest in this region of Middle East. First of all, because India has followed a neutrality policy in the Middle East, it has on the one hand supported Israel due to its strong defense partnership, and on the other hand also it has shied away from strongly condemning Iran and its proxies in the region, because Iran and India also shared a very strong cultural and historical ties. Plus, there is a dependency on the oil for India, and there is a issue of energy security for India as far as this entire area is concerned. For example, we know that more than 50-60% of India's crude oil and natural gas passes via the Strait of Hormuz, which is a very, very vital choke point that is lying under the control of Iran. This is also India has to keep in mind when it is talking about the region, talking about the conflicts in this particular area. Plus, India has nationals in both Gaza region, that means Palestinian territory, as well as Israel territory. They can also be at risk if the war escalates. And plus, India also enjoys a strategic partnership with US, and also it has a very strong partnership with the European Union as such. So it has to maintain a balancing act in this particular regard. So this is going to be a diplomatic challenge, a challenging task as far as India's diplomacy is concerned in the future if the war keeps dragging on, and then India will have to make a very careful balancing act in this particular regard as such. That is all about this particular video. If you like the video, please hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more such content. Thank you.